All right, Dave, we are back. A little fantasy football week 13, and I'm celebrating a Bears victory. Can you believe it here? Beating the
I know.
Vikings.
I like it. I'm celebrating it as well because that helps the Packers' chances at the playoffs. And after a big win on Thanksgiving this year, so hey, I'm loving it as well.
We did throw you a bone, that's for sure. Yeah, it's nice because all my Vikings friends are talking shit to me this whole game, and it's like, how are you guys talking shit? You might lose, and they get up by one, they go nuts, and now they're just the freaking crickets, man, signing off. I love it when that happens. Like, come on, guys,
Oh, it's always
seriously,
nice.
you know, Brooks and Troy and Boyer, Jesus. Well, it feels good. I mean, it sucks to hurt the draft pick, but Fields, he tried to give away the game, then he then he just had that nice pass to DJ Moore, and so I'm pretty okay with that. And no touchdowns this game, pretty ugly for the Bears. Like one
Yeah.
touchdown for the Vikings, missed field goal, but they certainly outgained the Vikings. And Dobbs now fell back to Dobbs. That's what happens. He goes to a new team, looks awesome for about a week or two, and then turns into crap.
Well, and teams figure him out and they start to game plan for him then too. So I knew he'd come actually eventually come back down to earth. I didn't think it'd be this week, but I knew he eventually would.
No,
But
you
it's a week
didn't
later
because
than
this is perfect timing too. Use your nasty sleeper last week, Dave. If
I
I'm not, if
know.
I'm not sure.
Exactly. So it's okay that he came back down to earth this week.
Yeah. Well, that burned you, buddy. Hopefully you didn't have to start him in a league. It's one of those situations where I think the Vikings D has gotten better, but the Bears D has gotten a lot better that people just haven't seen yet. It's kind of quiet, in those situations. And the fact that they're better, they're going to kind of be in a few games now. So they're going to make it interesting anyway, um, from the time forward. But here we are, and it's fantasy football week 13. And Dave, I think the bye weeks are back, aren't they?
Yes, with a vengeance. There's a ton of buys this week. We got 6 teams on buy this week, so definitely going to hurt quite a few people starting lineups this week. We'll start off with a couple of the bigger teams this week. It's going to be the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, definitely get him out of your lineup. They're at committee with the running back, so I don't think you're starting many of them. But if you have Gus Edwards or Keaton Mitchell, definitely put them on your bench as well. Zay Flowers, who had a big game for me this week, you have to get him on your bench. Odell Beckham, if you do possibly start him, get him on your bench as well. I'm sure a lot of people aren't, though, but Zay Flowers is definitely a big loss for myself. Quite a few of my leagues. The Bills, they have quite a few fantasy players that are going to hurt people as well. Definitely Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Josh Allen, of course, number 1 quarterback right now in the league. And then we got James Cook as well. So definitely, and Dalton Kincaid too. So quite a few players on the Bills that are going to hurt a lot of people this week. That was a big loss. The same with the Ravens too. The Bears, I don't think you're starting many Bears, but Justin Fields, possibly DJ Moore. The running backs, they're kind of splitting time, so I don't know if you're starting any of them right now. But Khalil Herbert or Dante Foreman. Foreman didn't really do much tonight though. Roscoe Johnson actually looked pretty good tonight though, but. Cole Kmet actually is a major tight end who's been playing well this year, one of the leading tight ends in fantasy. So get him on your bench as well. The Raiders, Aiden O'Connell actually played very well this week. You're not starting him in any leagues, but if you were, he's definitely put him on your bench. Devontae Adams is a big one. He has underperformed the last couple weeks, but you definitely get him on your bench. Jacoby Myers, who actually has looked good the last couple weeks. Josh Jacobs, that's a big loss for a lot of people. So him and Adams are the 2 big ones from the Raiders. The Vikings, who just lost tonight, actually. Hopefully you're not starting Joshua Dobbs, but he's one of the fantasy players you want to definitely get to your bench. TJ Hawkinson, that's a big one. He's one of the top tight ends this year. Definitely get him on your bench. Jordan Addison, and then that's about it on there. And then maybe Alexander Madison too. He actually had a good game tonight. He's had 2 solid games in a row now. So get those guys all on your bench. Jersey Juice for the Giants. Get him on your bench. You probably not start him in many leagues, but Tommy DeVito, get him on your bench. Saquon Barkley is a big one. The tight end, they really don't have tight ends of note. Darren Waller's on IR, so you're really not starting. I don't think Daniel Bellinger or anyone like that right now. Darius Slayton, who's actually had a couple of good weeks, and Jaleel Hyatt. Those maybe are other guys you might want to get on your bench as well. But overall, that Giants really don't have many impactful fantasy guys other than Saquon. But that's your rundown for the fantasy buys this week.
Yeah, you had a lot of them, buddy. There is a lot out there. So, yeah, it's a brutal week for buys, especially in those smaller roster leagues where you're kind of like, oh no, what should I do? Some serious names there, So
Yes,
you might
definitely.
you might have to use some scraps off the waiver wire. Hopefully, we can find you some. But as far as the key injuries, they kind of giving clusters for a few teams, like the Saints. They already lost Michael Thomas. Now Rashid Shaheed goes out with a thigh injury, and Chris Olave with a concussion. It's like, who are they going to be throwing to now? It's not looking good. Dorian Thompson Robinson had a concussion himself, and then PJ Walker had a come in, unfortunately, and he was very unfortunate in that game. Calvin Austin, he had an ankle injury. Not a big starter right there, but just in case you had to play him or have to play him this week, it's not looking good. And Amari Cooper went out with a rib injury and is day to day. I think there's some Thanksgiving ones I might have missed, Dave. What do you have?
You covered most of them, like you said. And there was a couple of key defensive ones too that were out there as well. Myles Garrett left with an arm injury. He left in a sling after the game. That's a major injury for IDP guys. And then we had Bailey Zappi, who actually replaced Mac Jones at halftime. So keep an eye on that situation. Even though Mac Jones was not injured, he's been playing poorly the last couple of weeks. So definitely get him on your bench. Bailey Zappi might be starting going forward, so keep an eye on that. That's something of note that you want to keep an eye on. And then Fletcher Cox, and Zach Cunningham for the Eagles are both ruled out of the game with groin injury, and then possibly concussion for Zach Cunningham. So a couple other IDP guys, and then Demario Douglas, who's actually come on lately. He had a head injury or concussion possibly as well for the Patriots, so he came out too a little early. He might be doubtful this week. That's his second concussion of the year too. So he definitely, I would think, would probably miss this week. And he was actually their primary receiver and coming on lately too. So get him on your.
Oh, for sure. Well, that makes sense. Let's move on to waiver wire then, Dave. Who are we picking up?
All right, great. Once again, I'm going to talk about quarterbacks for the big buys this week. Baker Mayfield, actually, I'm going to bring him up again. 20 completions, 30 pass attempts this past week, 199 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Fourth time in the last 5 weeks, Mayfield has thrown 2 touchdowns. So I definitely think he's a viable starter now. If he's not starting this week with all the buys, he's a guy you can plug in and kind of help you out this week. Jordan Love, he's had a couple good weeks now. He's under 50% owned still, but he is going to be a starter going forward for most people. If he is out there, if he's on your bench, definitely plug him in this week. He's actually had last 3 games, he's averaging 293 passing yards over that stretch. And in week 13, it's a tough matchup against Kansas City, but after that, he does have some favorable matchups against the Giants, Buccaneers, Panthers, and Vikings. So he could be a fantasy winner in the playoffs for you as well. So definitely keep that in mind when you're setting your lineups this week with players on bye. Chuba Hubbard actually had one of his better games this week as well. I think he's definitely took over for Miles Sanders now as the starter for sure. He had 14 carries, 5 yards rushing and a touchdown, and then 5 receptions on 5 targets for 47 receiving yards. So definitely start him going forward. Ty Chandler, actually a speculative pickup. Alexander Madison has played well the last couple of weeks, but we mentioned him a little bit last week, so I'm not going to go into him too much right now as well. Wide receivers Josh Downs. He didn't make a big impact in the box score, but he had caught 5 of 13 targets. He had 13 targets this past week, which is huge. He didn't convert on a lot of those, but definitely if he's out there on waivers, I think he's a borderline starter right now. Definitely pick him up. 2 guys that aren't widely owned right now. Jaden Reed for the Packers, who I talked about last week. He picked right up where he left off in the Thanksgiving D game. It looked really good. He had 4 of 8 targets he caught for 34 yards and a touchdown, and 2 carries for 16 yards. So definitely he's a guy they're finding and making plays for now. So definitely he's going to get the ball going forward. A.T. Perry for the Saints with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed out this next week possibly. A.T. Perry is going to be a guy you want to take a look at. He only had a couple targets this past week, but I expect for him to be in the starting lineup this week if one of those guys is out, and he could come up huge for you this week as well. Another guy that's coming on lately is actually Jameson Williams. So he's at New Orleans, who hasn't played very well lately. Definitely pick him up and plug him in this week for people on bye. The tight end people might have forgotten about because he was injured for quite a few weeks in IR. Who he is back now, though. He had a huge week. He caught 9 of 11 targets for 120 yards. Yes, that is Pat Fremuth for the Steelers. And Isaiah Likely, too. He's on bye this week, but definitely if no one scooped him up last week, he's a guy you can take a look at as well.
Oh, for sure. I love Pat Freiermuth from last week. He was really good, man. So you have a total agreement from me. Before I get to mine, Chaka has a question. Hey, guys, would you trade Thielen, Achin, and Javonte Williams for Chase and Jacobs? Jamar Chase, I'm guessing. 3 wide receiver, PPR. Current wide receivers aren't great. Other running backs are Kamara, Brees Hall, and Kyron Williams. Ooh, Kyron Williams and Kamara are fantastic. And so you're giving up Achin. Here's the thing. I don't think Thielen's going to necessarily be balling out there. They just fired their coach. He's their only guy, but I mean, if I'm him, I fake an injury at the end here. They're not going to be well, they did lose their draft pick, so I guess they're still going to win. But I mean, they get a higher second round draft pick. I don't know. It's just I think Chase is still better than Thielen. I think Achin is. You can't start Achin and Javonte, really, if you already have all those good running backs. So you're getting Jacobs is just better than both of them combined, just because you have to start one or the other. So I would do it, Dave.
I would in a heartbeat, yeah. Getting Chase and Jacobs. Jacob is still a top 10 back. Chase is still a top 10 receiver, even with Browning throwing to him. He had to miss a couple throws this past. He could have had big gains on, and he even missed a touchdown catch too. So definitely, I'm definitely taking Chase and Jacobs on that day. Whoever to get that side of the deal is definitely the winner. Sean and Thielen, he's going to underperform. Does not have a good quarterback there, and Bryce Young, and that team is not good as a whole. And Jacobs is way better than Sean or Javonte Williams, in my opinion. And plus, I think the Raiders' offense has been coming on lately under Pierce now too. They've actually put up quite a few yards. I know Connell's looking better, and they have quite a few weapons there still too. So I like that trade for them is a lot actually. So I would jump on the Chase and Jacobs deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure. And here's the thing: Achin's probably gonna have a monster game or two. Just not trustable when you have Mostert there, and now a healthy Jeff Wilson, a couple other guys. Yeah, it's just I would make that trade for sure. 100% make that trade. Okay.
And he's not even going to be the bell cow there when Jacobs is going to be the bell cow and get all the carries. No one else this past week, only one other running back got a carry, and it was LaShawn. Like you said, Mostert's going to get carries and Wilson's going to get carries. Yeah, Sean, yeah. Ashan.
It's some people say Achin, some people say Achin. I think it's Achin. So it's hard to.
Either way, he's not going to get as many carries as Jacobs does. So Jacobs is going to be the winner in that deal.
So I agree with everything you said. A.T. Perry for sure. Khalif Raymond had 5 receptions, even if you're desperate. Royce Freeman, you're right, Dave. I didn't even see Kyron Williams coming back this week, and he had a massive game last week. Yeah, Kyron freaking Williams was awesome. So keep starting him, dude. But I think Royce Freeman is the second guy there. Tyler Higbee is available in over 50% of leagues. He had 2 touchdowns, so he kind of he was first they were tweeted that Schefter or it might have been Rappaport tweeted that he was out, and then an hour later he's like, "No, I was wrong. He's been," and scores 2 touchdowns. Imagine taking him out, not seeing that tweet, and having him score 2 touchdowns. That was brutal. PJ Walker, maybe. I think Joe Flacco's going to be the one to start in Cleveland, and what a bad situation.
They said Joe Flacco will start this week, actually, over PJ Walker.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yep. I just think that, man, I wouldn't want to start any of those Cleveland guys right now. It's just Joe Flacco's horrible. So I'd start Jordan Love.
He's better than PJ Walker, though. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think
I'll give you a speculative pickup. Tyquan Thornton is finally getting healthy for the Patriots, and they don't have much over there. Devontae Parker, maybe, but I think they're just going to want to see what they have in him this year. They're out of the playoffs and everything, so I can see Tyquan Thornton getting some starts, and see if he's worth picking up their next option on him, And I could see as a speculative, nothing major if you have some room. So that's what I have, Dave. So a lot of agreement from me to what you said. Non-starters trending up for week 13. So before we get into that, we have another question here. Reborn Jungle, not 173. My friend offered me Diggs for Amon Ra. Thoughts? Diggs bye week isn't the end of the world, as I'm fairly certain to make the playoffs. I would rather take him on Ross St. Brown, man. St. Brown has just been nasty good for the Lions, and the Lions are going to be throwing a ton. Diggs is in a worse stadium. He's where it snows in Buffalo, while the Lions play in a dome. You can always trust Amon-Ra to not play in the wind and get all those catches with perfect conditions, right, Dave?
One caveat: I do agree with you. I like Amon St. Brown better, but Stephon Diggs is the number one guy though still for Buffalo, but they do have Gabe Davis there though too. He's actually been coming on and had some big games this year too, so he does take a lot of those targets and catches away from Stephon Diggs. So that's the only reason I would lean Amon St. Brown. And the other caveat that I have to put into this, if healthy, Amon St. Brown in the past has had a lot of injuries, where Stephon Diggs has not. So that's the one thing. You can't really predict that, but if healthy, I think Ramon St. Brown is still the guy I would choose in that deal.
Now, and great points. And the Buffalo is going to be behind a ton with that battered up defense. So, man, it's not like it's far away, right? What I will say is that in the beginning of the season, I would take Diggs, but now I would keep Amon-Ra. I mean, I don't see what the real point of that is. Kind of apples for apples trade. It's kind of it's not like you need a running back. It's just, yeah.
Well, Stephon Diggs has bigger names though. Still, he's the more recognized receiver, but I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is the more of a go-to guy because there's really no one else there that's going to get the targets and the catches. So they don't really have another true number two for the Lions. So that's
yes, better schedule too because he plays in a dome against Minnesota. That's going to happen again, and then I would say the Miami's defense, the Jets defense is still very good, and they're going to put Sauce Gardner on Diggs and all that. So it's not a big distance, but I would keep on Ross. So that's our thoughts. Thanks for the awesome question, though, dude. Really appreciate it, man. Non-stars training up for week 13. Tyler Algier versus the Jets. The Jets have been shedding a little bit more yards against the run game lately, and teams are running against them because they're winning by 7-10 points. It's kind of like garbage times. It's like I think Algier is going to do pretty good this week. George Pickens versus the Cardinals would be nice. I think he's a starter for sure. The Cardinals secondary is awful. Running back Ty Chandler versus the Raiders should be okay. He got some play tonight. It was a lot of Madison, but Chandler got some play. He had a bad game really, but the whole Vikings had a bad game. Ramondre Stevenson versus the Chargers is the only guy from New England that I would trust in the fact that he's playing the Chargers. I kind of like that. I think he's going to get his yards against the Chargers. But Jesus, man, New England, this is just in shambles. Baker Mayfield versus the Panthers, loving that one too, Dave. You mentioned picking him up if he's there. Running back Rachaad White versus the Panthers, I like too. Wide receiver Adam Thielen versus the Buccaneers is okay too. I think Thielen this week, man, will do pretty good. Not necessarily as good as some of your guys, but wide receiver Nico Collins. I'm going to say the whole Houston Texans really against Denver. I think Denver's still fraudulent. They're winning off turnovers. I just
I'm in a row though, man. I know we both dissed Denver last week, but I don't know. I'm starting to believe a little bit in Denver now. They're finding ways to win. Sean Payton is trying to put his stamp on the team now a little bit, and they found ways to win with the Saints too. So I don't know. I'm starting to become a little bit of a believer, but I still am hesitant on the Broncos though still too at the same time.
I think this is the perfect time to play the Texans, and especially after that loss to Jacksonville. I think they're going to play catch up. I even like Dalton Schultz because Denver gives up a ton of yards to tight ends. Devin Singletary. He's kind of the man. Damian Pierce is really fallen off lately. And Yeah, I'm just saying Devin Singletary's the starter now. I think you got to start him
I agree.
for sure
100%
if you
agree.
have it.
They both were healthy
Yeah.
this weekend, and Singletary still got majority of the carries actually this week. And he played. I think they were saying he played like 70 to 80% of the snaps. Pierce is kind of being faded out a little bit there.
Yeah, I just looked right before we got on. I looked at Pierce's numbers for the season, and it was really bad, man. And I know he was injured, but still, even the ones he played, he barely got into double digits a few games. Tight end Evan Ingram versus the Bengals is nice too, because the Bengals give up a lot of yards to tight ends. And the Bengals are in shambles now. They're kind of, I could see them giving up on the season because they had just had 2 great seasons. There's probably going to throw them in a towel now. There's no way that Burrow is coming back. So that's sad. Wide receiver Brandon Ayuk versus the Eagles is good. The Eagles secondary has been banged up, and believe it or not, those Eagles defenses are not what they were. Dave, why don't you get into your trending up?
Yeah, I had a lot of those same ones that you did. I do like the Jaguars. I like Evan Ingram. I like Christian Kirk actually as well against the Bengals. So those are the 2 I like there. I like McConnell Harmon against the Packers. Packers defense has looked good the last couple of weeks, but I think their secondary is still suspect a little bit, especially against the Chiefs this week. That's a tough matchup. I like Ayuk and Deebo Samuel both this week against the Eagles. I do like Cooper Kupp to rebound this week. He's kind of been underperforming the last 3 weeks. So I think him and Nuka kind of step it up this week and have a good game this week. I do like you said too, I like Rashad White and Baker Mayfield against that poor Panthers defense. I like Chuba Hubbard against the Buccaneers still too, but it'll be a little tough slaying because they have a pretty good run D. But I still like Chuba Hubbard. He's been playing well lately. Big fan of the Texans now. CJ Stroud there. I like Nico Collins. I like Tank Dell too this week against them. CJ Stroud too. I like you said, the whole Texans D. I'm sorry, the whole Texans offense. A big Texans fan now. The young upcoming team. I like them and how they're coached. DeMarco Ryans is doing a great job there. I do like the Dolphins this week. I like. I'm going to butcher the name again. Sean. I like him this week. Sean. I like him again this week against the Commanders. I do like Jalen Waddle too. He's actually hasn't done much the last couple of weeks, but he could have a big game against the Commanders who give up a lot of points and just fire their defensive coordinator as well. So keep that in mind too. So I like that matchup for them. Steelers, I do like Deontay Johnson this week. He's borderline starter anyways, but I like him against that poor Cardinals defense. And Jalen Warren, who's actually been coming on these last couple of weeks. I think he's trending up right now as well. I like that matchup. I do like Quentin Johnson this week as a deep sleeper against the Patriots. I think he has a big game after kind of underperforming the last couple of weeks too as well. So, and I do like Brandon Cooks this week too against that poor Seahawks D, who's actually they're kind of like on the downward spiral right now as well. And that Cowboys D is just relentless. So we'll get into that in a minute here on our trending down.
All right, we'll get into bust then, my man. Why don't you start?
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with the Seattle Seahawks. The Dallas defense is just insane. Deron Bland, 5 TDs. He's got more TDs than most receivers in the league right now. I think he'd be 14th in the league in receiving touchdowns if he was a receiver. So definitely downgrading the Seahawks. Whoever's starting at running back, depending on if Kenny Walker does come back or not this week. I don't like Geno Smith against that Cowboys pass rush, especially if they sign Shaq Leonard as well. It's just going to be ridiculous. I do not like that matchup there. I don't like the Falcons against the Jets. I don't like. I know you said Ty Algier. I don't like him this week. Babujan is getting more of the carries now too, so I don't like Ty Algier. I'm actually downgrading Desmond Ridder too against the Jets. He struggled again this past week with turnovers, so definitely downgrading him. I think Kyler Murray struggles a little bit this week against the Steelers and Marquise Brown as well. Steelers D is tough and they're legit this year. Definitely a tough matchup for them. I don't like the Broncos this week against the Texans. Texans actually have an underrated defense, I think. They do give up some points, though, here and there. But I think the Broncos finally do struggle this week. I think Russell Wilson struggles a little bit. Same with Cortland Sutton and Javonte Williams. So downgrading them. Then I'm also downgrading the Eagles. I don't like the Eagles against that tough San Francisco D. I think they struggle this week against them. So I'm downgrading Jalen Hurts a little bit. You're still starting him, but I'm just downgrading him a little bit. I don't like the running backs. I don't like Swift or Gainwell against that tough Frisco D as well. I hate to say it, but I'm going to downgrade the Packers as well. Jordan Love, I think, struggles against that tough Chiefs D. The Chiefs D, I think, is one of the top 10 defenses right now. But they're playing at Lambeau, but I still don't like this matchup for the Packers, so I'm definitely downgrading them as well.
I disagree with the Steelers. They're number 22nd in yards allowed to running backs and 24th in pass yards. I think that the Steelers are still a little fraudulent and probably even more fraudulent than Denver. And I think Arizona, they're embarrassed last week. I don't want to fade embarrassed teams too much, but otherwise I agree with most of those. And I have some of those, Dave. I have quite a
They
few
still
of
have
those.
TJ Watt there, and their pass rush is still a good pass rush. Even though they're thin at linebacker right now, that's why they've been struggling a little bit on D. They only still give up 10 points this past week.
Yeah, I know they played a Bengals team without a quarterback. So, I mean, that's the problem with Jamar Chase, but I still think that Browning will do better, and then Chase will
I
still
think
be
he
the
will
main
be
guy
too.
there. Yeah. I'd rather have Browning to Chase than what's his face, Bryce Young to Thielen. All right, so DeAndre Swift versus the 49ers is pretty suspect this week, and Swift has been awesome last, but man, against the Niners, ugh.
No.
And might as well throw the Eagles defense against the Niners. And what sucks for me is I have the Eagles defense in a league, and they've just been playing some tough matchups. The Bills and the Cowboys, and now they get the Niners. You still got to hold them for the end of the season because I think they get those like Giants type teams, later again, which is what you're really going to want for the playoffs. So you got to hold on to them as much as possible. But they're a bad start this week. Joe Mixon versus the Jaguars is bad too because he's going to be in give up mode soon. Alvin Kamara versus Detroit's a little suspect. Detroit's run D has been better. Zach Charbonnet against Dallas is bad. So I agree with you, Geno Smith, and I also think that Zach Charbonnet won't be good. And Walker's been banged up anyway, so I didn't even mention him. But if he comes back, I won't like him either.
Yeah, I don't think either running back, whoever's starting, I don't think they're both going to struggle. I think either way against the tough Dallas D.
As good as Kyron Williams was against Arizona's D, I don't like him against Cleveland's D this weekend. Now I know that Myles Garrett might not play, and I guess his arm was messed up last game, but I still think he's the pass rusher, and Cleveland will still stop the run. So Kyron Williams, I don't like as much. AJ Dillon versus the Chiefs isn't good. I don't know if Aaron Jones is back, Dave, but AJ Dillon is not going to get a lot of yards versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been a lot better lately. And Jordan Love, and sucks because Jordan Love had a great game, and now they got to play the Chiefs D. And Chiefs is more of a top 5 D actually, Dave, than a top 10 D in my opinion right now.
No, I wouldn't argue with that at all. I think the Chiefs D is definitely one of the top Ds right now.
Right, you might as well throw Christian Watson in there too. It's just tough for the whole Packers team. That brings us to our nasty sleeper, Dave. I'm curious who you have this week. Hopefully, it's not Josh Dobbs. Well, he's got to buy anyway. See, you can't fade the Bears this week. That's why I'm so curious.
So I'm actually going with the next worst team in the league. I'm going with Baker Mayfield. I just talked about him in my pickups for the week. Baker Mayfield's been solid this year, and I think he's got a great matchup this week against the Carolina Panthers. So I'm going with Baker Mayfield as my D-Nasty sleeper of the week.
I'm going to go with Jalen Warren versus the Cardinals. I think he gets a ton of carries versus the Cardinals, especially if they're blowing him out. Najee can be a little bit rested here. I think the Steelers need that game where they're just going to put the pounding on someone, and the Cardinals are, possibly a candidate. I still think the Cardinals get their points, but I think Jalen Warren can have a really good game against the Cardinals. So he's my nasty sleeper, Dave.
I like it.
All right. What have we missed? Anything?
I don't think so. I think I'll just make sure you get all those buy players out. There are a lot of buys this week, a lot of key players out this week. Make that final run for the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. And a lot of times you want to hit the ads button just to see how many people are adding who, because you're getting a consensus there now. Some people have earlier waivers than others, so it's more beneficial if your waivers are later. But you can kind of see who's popping this week a little bit too, not just from our show, but you can kind of see what the consensus is in a lot of these situations. But thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you have any questions, email us at the Odds Breakers, info at the Odds Breakers, and tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Have a great rest of your week, my friends, and go get some winners.